Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and still with you on this morning's edition of The Breakfast Show. And as promised earlier, we have a very interesting topic under discussion in the studio, speaking about the conditions and efforts to support citizens as well as industries and new projects in Egypt in light of the global situation. And we're delighted to be joined this morning in the studio by our guest, Dr. Yomn, Hamaki, Professor of Economics. Doctor, thank you so much for your time and for coming in this morning.
Good morning.
A very good morning to you, Doctor. First and foremost, in light of the global situation, the whole world is reeling from, the consequences of the coronavirus pandemic, and then the Russian-Ukrainian war, and the global economic fallout has really touched everywhere around the world. How do you see the importance for Egypt to deal with this, to localize its industries, to be less dependent on international factors for our industrialization process?
It needs a lot of
big question,
insights. It's a big question. Actually, let's start by highlighting the situation, the international environment we are living in nowadays, and to how extent it has its repercussions on all countries of the world, concentrating on Egypt. First of all, we need to know that the world economy is witnessing nowadays severe challenges, tensions, trade wars, and at the same time some kind of polarization. Polarization is getting worse every day, and when we talk about that, we are revising to how extent we are moving forward on more globalization versus deglobalization. So this is the main question nowadays raised by all thinkers and economists and so on. The issue here is when you find a place, or what to how extent you can benefit and reduce the negative impact of such environment. First of all, you need to know your position in the international economic system. You need to specify what are your potentialities, what are your resources, how you can use resources, what places, what potentialities you may have in such, environment. First of all, what we have to think about, since you mentioned the industrial sector, because Egypt can rely on the industrial sector as engine of growth, and actually we have such potentialities according to our studies as economists. Egypt is full of resources. We have a strong industrial sector, but unfortunately our industrial sector needs a lot of amendments and structural changes and the right policies by the government, as well as the right actions by the players working in such...
And we've seen actually over the last few years a lot of moves by the government to cater for the industrial sector, to support them, to provide assistance, subsidies, to deal with the challenges that they face in order to allow this industrial sector to grow. How do you see the steps taken by the state in the last few years in this regard?
Actually, first of all, we need a visionary approach. We need a vision towards what type of industries we need to strengthen, because nobody is, according to last experiences of economic miracles like China, South Korea and so on, when they started industrialization, they cannot start all industries at the same time, which means that you should know first of all what's your potentialities, where are your comparative advantage, which industries you can start immediately promoting for exportation because you have a comparative advantage in it, what other industries you need to enhance their competitiveness so that you can transfer it from being produced at home and not being able to compete internationally, and then moving towards more competitiveness and more potentialities for penetrating international markets. So this is the most important exercise. Unfortunately, we didn't do such exercise, which means that we are expanding in all industries as if this is the industrialization. And when you expand in all these industries, you know, still you are, you know, increasing the burden of importation, because since you don't have much export to you know, make the balance between what you are importing and what you are exporting, and to provide, as we mentioned in Egypt, hard currency in order to support your needs for importation, so you are not going to manage. And this is what happened during the last period, starting from 2016, when you devaluate the Egyptian pound, and then you manage to, you should in this period make a profound strategy towards industrialization, managing your resources, exploiting your resources efficiently enough so that to manage your inflows and outflows, foreign exchange, and to achieve such kind of stabilization. Unfortunately, we were doing well regarding the rate of growth, and you know, infrastructure was essential, and mega project was important in order to pave the way for attracting investment. But unfortunately, we had that, and we weren't prepared actually in this period to cushion the negative impact of such external shocks. And from here it comes that we need to learn that lesson this time nowadays. We need to learn that we have to, first of all, depend on ourselves and building our capabilities, first of all. And this is what happened for all experiences, you know.
Suddenly everyone found themselves
start by building your capabilities, start by using your resources efficiently, start by prioritizing which industries you can start by enhancing their capability for exportation. You know, our studies proved that we have ready-made clothes, we have food industries. We are doing quite well in food industries, and our export of food industry has increased substantially, but still it needs a lot of effort in order to build, you know, skills of workers, you know. Still nowadays, despite China, all the problems nowadays happening in China. Despite that, China, when you evaluate internationally, you know, the foreign direct investment, you can see that China is the first country still, despite all these problems, attracting foreign direct investment. Why? Because of skilled labor. Skilled labor can represent a very important cornerstone towards attracting foreign investment and improving the competitiveness of the industrial sector. This, we didn't have much progress in such enhancing our workforce. And you know, despite that, we have all the opportunities. So this is a lack of
it's a simple step.
Prioritizing, you know, what we need in order to build our economy in the right way. So this is a very important step. You know, what we, you know, I am working in the ground in training youth and enable them to work in factories and so on. Besides, we have several programs I'm working in order to build capabilities in technical schools. So we know all the scene, you know. It's quite clear for us. It's full of potentialities, and, you know, what you need is organization, good management, you know, attracting youth towards, specifically in slums and poor areas. All these, you know, students in the technical schools, they are suffering mainly from poverty. So to how extent you can manage that, you have to improve the quality of education in such schools and enable training centers related to different ministries to upgrade their capabilities and attract youth to be trained and direct them to the requirement opportunities of jobs. So here it's quite clear, you know, when you mention what we need to do, it's quite clear and the priorities are quite clear. The question is why we are not doing that. It's about, you know, prioritizing what we should start with. It's about private interests. It's about mismanagement. So a lot of problems prevent us from doing the right homework. And this is what we have to concentrate on actually in this period. Despite that we heard from our president last work day that we need a strategy for a holistic strategy for training, for recruitment. You know what are the steps that are taken nowadays? That we develop a group of experts to start building a strategy. So we're going to build a strategy, despite we have all the component of such strategy ready to be implemented. We are going to, you know, have 2 or 3 years
Doctor, what you're saying is
building strategy.
Yes, implementation seems to be
so
yes,
so this is the main word we have to concentrate on.
Speaking about
we have all studies. We have all studies. We don't need any studies.
We need to implement them.
We need to work on the ground.
Right. So recently, as you said, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has given his directives in order to reach this, and the Prime Minister has indicated that the government and the state have paved the way to achieve you know, industrial localization, a plan through stronger infrastructure, attracting more investments in Egypt, etc. You mentioned the issue of infrastructure, which we have come a very long way in preparation for the expansion of the industrial sector. How do you see the moves in this regard to prepare?
Still we need, you know, because the industrial sector, first of all, you cannot rely only on large factories in the industrial sector. Despite the importance of big projects, we have middle and small industries. We need to take care.
And
when
even
we talk,
micro industries.
Yes, and micro even. When we talk about that, you are going to address the big dilemma we are addressing in Egypt, which is the informal sector. So the informal sector is a very, you know, debatable sector regarding what? Regarding how you can attract them to move into the formal sector, regarding how you can upgrade their capabilities so that they can be more competitive in the market. So till now, we have been for more than 3 decades talking about that, and even that we have a new law for small business to address and to give incentives for informal sector to be transferred in to formal sector. Still on the ground regarding implementation, still a lot of obstacles preventing such sector to be transferred. So this is a very important topic to be discussed and to be solved, that we need to do that. Why? Because when we do it properly enough, we are adding to the capabilities of the productive sector in Egypt, because all these are working, you know, not in the light or not in coordination with, you know, the formal entities and the government specifically. And when you talk about that, you know, you are, you know, losing a lot as economy from just hiding, from taking not the direct way in order to reach your goals. You are trying to move not in the direct way, in parallel way, so that to prevent, you know, any punishment by government. From here it comes that this should be a priority for the government and the civil society to find ways how to attract this sector into the formal sector, and building their capabilities to be productive, and to even there is a good chance for such sector to grow And by growing, it means more recruitment, more
development.
potentiality of export, and so on. So this is a big point to be mentioned. Another point that is quite important, and so far we need to work on it, is a partnership between public and private sector. You have a public sector, you know, full of capabilities that are not used efficiently. And we are every year revising the performance of our public sector, mentioning those companies that have lost and others that succeeded to manage, you know. We forgot something very important, which is that these factories are full of potentialities to attract private sector to go to use all these facilities in the public sector companies. And we have both, you know, interest and both mutual potentialities for growing productive, you know, activities, which means that, for example, the private sector can have the potentiality of markets internally and externally. Private sector is more capable of management, is more capable to, you know, have the new technologies and so on, more capable to train workers and to select workers that are, you know, productive and they have a better productivity. So when you put the private sector with these potentialities, you don't need to build factories. The factories are already existing, and they have a good potentiality, and they have, you know, knowledge, and they have diffusion in the market, you know, regarding marketing sectors and so on. So when you put them together, and I have managed a lot of cases that have been quite successful, but this potentiality of private-public partnership still facing a lot of problems. And, you know, the management of the public sector are preventing, to a large extent, those who are asking for such opportunities, preventing the market and the economy from all these capabilities. So
the private sector has a big role to play.
Yes, and the private sector is willing, and you know, I know cases that they would like to join and to benefit from these potential.
And you know cases that have already done that.
I know a lot of
and
cases
succeeded already.
I know cases that have succeeded actually, and I know a lot more than that of cases that they are for 2 years
Trying
nowadays trying to find opportunities without any results.
Right, Doctor, there was an initiative called START, or EIDA. It was endorsed by the government also to encourage investors. How do you see the importance of such initiatives in developing and encouraging, you know, industries and investment in different industries in Egypt, and moving to maybe new industries, not
this
just,
is important.
You know, the traditional.
We have seen, you know, presentations of EIDA initiative. It's quite important to have initiatives in order to work as catalysts. Catalysts and, you know, coordinating efforts. Since we are just talking about implementation, we have a problem regarding implementation. So such initiative can play a significant role towards, you know, activating, you know, the work done in order to boost the industrial sector. Still, for EIDA, you know, there is a point which is EIDA going to replace, you know, those who are responsible for doing this business, which means that when we have initiatives in order to boost and to, you know, activate whatever we can mention, that it is quite important and it is good. But to how extent these initiatives are going to replace or activate the institutions that are responsible for doing such work, which means that what we need to do is specifying roles and responsibilities regarding activating industrial sector. We need to enhance their capability regarding if skills to be upgraded, if we need more incentives, if we need more accountability, you know. So a lot to be a system of monitoring and evaluation. So from my point of view, if EIDA is going to, the most important thing to be done nowadays is to build a system of monitoring and evaluation, so that to specify to how extent each institution is doing its homework quite well, so that when we have these coordinated efforts, we can expect the results in a short period, because this is what we need in this.
We need speed.
Yes, we need the speed, and we need to activate our using resources so that it could be reflected in a very short period on our economic situation.
Yes.
So this is what we need to do. So for EIDA, it's quite important, it's good, but still we need to clarify specifically what we need from them.
Speaking about speed, Dr. Yomn, very important issue, and the government has, approved something called a golden license. Tell me a bit about this golden license, because it's to do with speeding up the process.
Yes,
and what is the difference between it and, the one-stop windows or one-stop shops that the government was also trying to implement, where if you need to get a license or to get an approval, it's a one-stop window, one-stop shop, you get your paper and go, to cut down on red tape, on bureaucracy, on lots of different steps. Tell me a bit about the golden license, its importance, and how it differs from the one-stop window.
Actually, when we have been talking about one-stop shop now for more than 3 decades, it means, as it has been experienced in several countries, that we are putting all the requirement for a starting up business in one place, so that when they go, they know quite well that they have to get the permission from, for example, 10 places or 15 places, and each place the requirements. So I'm going to prepare my works and to apply in one place, so that I can get the approval.
Yes.
I can get the, instead of going to different places to get I want the approval from the industrial, minister, or the license, or from the Minister of Finance regarding taxation, and so on. So for the one-stop shop that actually we didn't apply it properly so far till now, just we are talking and having a building, very nice building, and making the inauguration and all this without significant, results for the investors.
So is this why the golden license is coming?
So no, the golden license is something different. Golden license is that when you apply, you know quite well what are the requirements, but when you apply, you are getting the approval, you can start immediately, and then you can finish your work getting such approval on time, guaranteeing that you are fulfilling the requirements, which means that it's not just getting out the requirements. You have to do the requirements, but the problem, or the positive point for the golden lines is that you are not going to take time. Some projects may take, from 6 months to more than 1 year in order to get the permission to start business. But for the golden lines, since you get the first permission, you are getting, you can start your work immediately. So
and
this
whilst
is,
you work, get the
yes,
rest
this
of
is
your
resuming a lot of time, which is good for any investor. And then after that, you may finish the requirements. And this is quite, this is quite important. Why? Because, when you save time, you are saving money.
Yes, indeed.
And you are
making money.
Yes, and this is can help you to start your business successfully. And I believe that what we need and what have been discussed actually in the economic conference is that we need to stabilize, the environment of investment for investors in the industrial sector. Unfortunately, actions have been taken 1 week ago by halting the interest rate of the 8% for the industrial sector. And we kept saying that we need, despite that we know quite well the reason behind that, the requirements of IMF and so on. And, you know, the government is under pressure actually to fulfill the needs of IMF so that we can
Plus the needs of the industries.
you know, the facility from IMF, despite we all know that. But it needs from us to discuss other ways. It needs from us as if we are in, you know, we are working together, and we are affected by any decision taken, and we need to work in, you know, just a coordinated way so that we can, you know, absorb any negative effects. Yes.
Right. I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. I'd like to thank you very, very much,
You're
Dr.
welcome.
Hamaki, our economic expert. Thank you very, very much. It's been a pleasure to have you with us on The Breakfast Show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Ladies and gentlemen, do stay tuned for more coming your way on Now TV International with our second segment for this morning's edition of The Breakfast Show.